And from frame to frame, that rate will be defined by these two values here, vector x and vector y.
So the purpose of this to give us more of an organic feel of the movement? Is that what we're doing?
Yeah. Oh, God, I wish I hadn't broken the code. Give me just 1 second here.
Well, we'll get to see Zero Brain in action here.
Yeah, I got Zero Brain all right. Maybe.
You did change some things earlier.
Yeah, I changed something in the common. Let's make sure I didn't mess up common.
Yeah, you went from common to something. There was an object there that you changed.
Let's zoom out a little bit. Bobby in here. Bob. And layers. Now.
We could really do it. We could do a whole show over troubleshooting, because troubleshooting is, it's all good until something stops working.
Oh, I hate it when I mess up code midstream. Okay, you know what? From now on, I'm not allowed to type in live code, man. Not during the show, because this is very bad that I have changed this. There it is. Don't flip out.
Well, at least he's facing the reticle. I mean, he's, just doesn't feel like going anywhere.
Doesn't feel like moving it. Move it, Bob! He's not working. We got to call him Bob.
That's right. He likes to move it. He likes to move it.
I bet you money.
So you're basically just undoing, like back.
Yeah, I'm just Control-Zing everything I did just a minute ago.
It's like code
There
TiVo.
it is. Okay. One of these files was necessary. I commented it out like a fool. Okay, where was it going? Okay, here's the reticle, right? As you can see, the player is facing at a 45-degree angle to the right. If you consider this to be 0, I consider this to be 45, 90, 135, 180, all the way around. What happens when you press the up arrow or the W key is I store the fact that you did that in a variable on the player. I don't actually change the player's position yet. I just update a variable that the player has called moveY. MoveY now contains a negative value when I press W. And what happens is on the next frame, the code says, oh, I have an enter frame listener attached to the player. I need to execute it. Among the other things it does is it checks the moveY variable and it says, moveY has been changed from the last time, or it's got a value in it. Let's go ahead and calculate a vector from the player's position pointing 45 degrees, which is the current facing of the character. So now we've got a vector that represents this angle. Then we scale it so that it is of unit length. Its length is 1. And then in the game, in common, you'll see there's a variable defining how fast the player can walk. And let's say the player can walk 100 pixels per second. I can't remember what the value is. So to get that, what we do is we take that vector we just created and we scale it by 100. So now the vector is 100 pixels long. Then all we got to do is set the player velocity to be the x and y components of that vector, and the player walks up and to the right, or down and to the left, or straight up. It's always going to be in the direction that the player is facing.
And just the red square there is just for our reference, right?
Yeah,
so
we didn't get to talk about that today. So one of the last topic for today was movement limitation. In any game, you're probably going to want to limit the bounds of the world. So currently, this red square represents the bounds of the player's world. Now, the textures get rendered beyond that, but this is as far as he's allowed to move.
Well, let's pick that up next time.
Yeah,
then.
let's pick that up next week.
Yeah.
Let me just give a preview of next week. So next week, we will talk about movement limitations, which we just hinted at. Then we will talk about adding enemies and enemy navigation 1.0, which is the non-pathfinding enemy navigation. Pathfinding will be a whole episode. That's a very exciting, interesting discussion, but it requires a lot of previous setup. We're not ready for that yet. So in a future episode, we'll talk about A-star or Dijkstra's algorithm or one of the whatever we choose is our pathfinding algorithm, and that'll be very interesting, but it requires tremendous amounts of setup in advance. So we'll save that for a future date.
Well, very, very cool. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put on my daddy hat, and I'm going to tell everybody listening that they should go download this code, go back and, well, download the code, mess with it. Then go back and watch this episode again and follow along with what Ed's doing. Because I know we all want to read a book or watch a video or take a pill that will make us taller, stronger, faster, whatever. And the reality is you can't, those are all things are all good, but you got to put in the time. You just have to put in the time. And sitting there with the code, messing with it, following along, just getting it into your head is the only way that it's going to happen. So Ed's done a great job of explaining all these things and trying to break them out and make them simple, but it's going to be up to you to go back and put in the time so that you can own the information yourself.
Yes, that is rule number one of teaching. You got to do it to learn it.
That's a rule for me. When I do these things, I have to do them myself to learn how to talk about them, because I've tried on previous episodes where like winging it, and that just does not work.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and we forget, right? When we went through school and we were taught to study and we were taught to do all these things, and we sort of inherently get right now that we have to study or we have to put in time, right? And we forget to apply that to different parts of our life. Yeah, we forget to. Yeah,
we forget why I know that's true. I just know it's true.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, and the only reason I say putting it on my daddy hat is, when I explain these things to my kids, they're like, well, I did that assignment, or I read that book, and I'm like, well, did you study? Did you go back and cover the material again? Did you try to do it? What's that?
Did you use it?
Did you use it? Yeah, that's a very good tool. And it just a case in point, yesterday my son backed out of the driveway. He's learning how to drive. He backed out of the driveway, and he should have backed out into the opposite lane so that he could go down the road. And for some reason, he decided to back out to the closest lane, which was oncoming traffic. And fortunately, we're on a very quiet street, but as soon as he did it, he realized what he was doing wrong, because he then had cars facing him, and he was like, "Oh, okay." So then we have very wide streets, so he was able to be like on the shoulder, and then when everything was clear, he pulled over into the lane that he needed to be. But imagine me sitting in the passenger seat, being like, "Okay, do you see what happened there? What went wrong? Let's analyze the situation." but he
Charles, I'm picturing you as a teaching driving to your son.
Oh, I know it. And there's there's only so many things that you can like cover, right? You're like, okay, here's the book and here's the instruction, and you've gone with us a million times to a bunch of different places, right? But it's not until you're in the moment that some of those things present themselves, and you're like, okay, do you see what was wrong there? And he said later, he was like, I now understand that concept. I will never forget that.
It's better to learn it in a non-emergency situation, I'll tell you.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Nobody died, so.
That's right. Exactly.
I didn't want to say that word.
All right,
but
well, good.
You know what, Charles? You can never say that again without having a special hat. So if you want to say you're putting on the daddy hat ever again, you need to have one, okay?
We'll get a daddy hat.
You need a daddy hat.
A hat that says daddy on the top. If you happen to come across a daddy hat in the mall, please mail it to me. I will wear it.
Not who's your daddy. Daddy.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's good. That's great. So next week we'll do movement limitations. We'll get into enemies. Maybe do a little bit of navigation 1.0. And I'm excited. I'm really liking where this is headed.
Yes.
So thanks for joining us. Be here next week. We'll talk all about mobile app development and desktop app development using Chrome SDK. Until then, have a great week and happy coding.
Adios. Tschüss. Auf Wiedersehen.